Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. And here on the Total Truth Show, we want to help you break free from the lies and propaganda of the mainstream media, all the disinformation and misinformation. We want to help you blast through all of that. And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the USA, San Diego, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
There is a great awakening happening in the world right now, and you're going to want to come along for the ride.
A lot of lies are coming to the surface. There's a lot of awakening happening, and as this awakening is happening, people realize they've been deceived for years. They've been lied to for years around all sorts of things. A lot of people have been blind to what has been going on in the world, and now they're starting to see. They're starting to see things in a different light.
Through our show, we want to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass. And we don't want you just to accept the things that we're saying. That goes for our guests as well. We want you to do the research for yourself. Get out there and start questioning things. Start looking things up. Do the research. We want to pave the way for a new awakened world. And we want you to come along for the ride. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Welcome to Total Truth Show episode 127. We're chatting about choice today, the truth about choice. And we do have an amazing return guest with us today who we'll be introducing in just a moment. And my co-host, Ken Kleinberg. How are you today, Ken?
Amazing.
Excellent. All right, I'm ready for a great show. Had a fantastic chat with our guest yesterday about what we're going to cover today, and you're in for a real treat. So a little bit about our beautiful Jacqx Melilli. I've known for many, many years now. She is an author, a playwright, writing coach, workshop presenter, and an accredited trainer and assessor. She has a Master of Arts degree in writing and literature from Deakin University. And in 2002, she founded her copywriting and editing business, Jack of All Trades, Master of Writing, and now runs leadership memoir and creative writing workshops in person and online. And I'm very excited to announce she is going to be presenting Mastering the Art of Storytelling at our upcoming retreat, which is happening at Hippocrates Centre in Madraba from April 10 to 12. And that's going to be amazing. Welcome to the show, Jacqx Melilli.
Thank you, Aldwyn. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Ken. Very nice.
You're welcome. Great having you as a returning guest.
Thank you.
Yes, brilliant. Now, I met Jacqx, I met you, how many years ago now? Must be at least 5 years ago or so, maybe longer. Maybe longer. Yeah, maybe.
Closer to 10? No, it's been a while.
Actually, it was probably it was well before COVID, wasn't it? So it would have been a few years there before COVID. And you joined our Mass Media Mastery program, and we've been on many journeys since then. So fantastic to have you here. Now, of course, your writing ability is extraordinary, and some of the books you've worked on have been massive. Have you always been interested in writing from a young age, or how did you get into this field?
Well, I actually migrated to Australia from France when I was 5. So good time, really, because you start kindergarten and you start to learn to read and write. So that was good for me. And as soon as I learned the English language, I actually found that storytelling was the only gift I had. I didn't do that well at school except for story writing. So I did enjoy that. And then, look, my languages took me different places. I wished I'd had parents and been able to guide me into, when you see a gift in your child, it's very important that you guide them towards that gift. I might have started a different path. We're talking about choices today, right? So this is the thing, the choices we make. But because of my languages, I did end up in tourism for 11 years and worked in, I had amazing jobs, and I'm not, it's been amazing because I got to do lots of work with outbound working with marketing, the Olympic Games and the Expo in Seville way back. I'm really showing my age now, but got to do so many amazing things. And so sometimes your choices aren't your first choice, but they do lead you down a path, and you make the best of everything. So the writing came, like the seriousness of the writing came a bit later, because I did get into acting when I was in my early 20s, and then started more on the writing journey. When I taught drama, I started to write my own plays, which then were encouraged. They won awards, so we were encouraged to have those published. And then that led to a educational publisher commissioning me to write 4 educational books on film and theatre production. And it sort of eventuated from there. As I said, I started my writing business in 2002 and sort of navigated. You kind of navigate to see what you really, again, we're talking about choices. So I wanted to get into script writing as well, because I love the entertainment industry, film and all that sort of thing. And that was quite difficult. So I just kept looking and trying my hand at different things to see, where I landed. Like, to make your money, you've got to be a copywriter. So make your bread and butter. It's very hard to make money just out of selling books, but workshops and things like that. Then I just realised that I really enjoyed teaching others and running workshops. So look, the paths that you go on, all again about choices, but the paths that you go on through these choices, nothing's wasted. I always think nothing's wasted, even if you're not going in the direction that you thought you wanted to go at the beginning. Everything that you've learnt during those different journey paths take you to somewhere that is just as special. So I just think choices, you can make good choices, you can make bad choices. It's what you do with those choices and turn a bad choice into a good choice. And in the end, look, I'm doing what I love, and that's really important. And so there you go.
And then there's the aspect of, I don't know what happened. Like, maybe it's just been so long ago since you've been on the show. Like, I totally forgot that you are a Christian. And so that was kind of like a yay, kind of moment for me. But in the aspect of choices, it is interesting. So first of all, the first thing that I want to say is, number one, in every circumstance in life, every single circumstance, you actually have 2 choices. You can either become the victim of that circumstance. In other words, this is where we complain and we throw a temper tantrum and we just become the victim. Or you can choose to pivot and make a different choice and choose a higher road. And just because you chose to maybe get in the driver's seat and choose a more empowered choice, I must clarify, that does not mean the storm goes away. The storm can be still raging around you, and you just chose to go on a higher path and empower yourself. So there's that choice. And then there's what's really interesting through all that too. There is the choice you make. Where was I? There was another point that I wanted to make around God and His sovereignty.
Can I just add in there for a second?
That was it. But go ahead. Yeah, I have I got it back in my head. So now but
I love what you said about choices is it was my choice to believe. My faith is my choice. It wasn't forced on me at all. And this is the beauty about the difference with, I suppose, Christianity and where God comes in is He doesn't force anything on anybody. It's our free choice. And if we decide not to go that path, then that's a choice as well. So I'm very much against religion. I don't like religion as far as religious organizations that tell you this is how you have to be, whether it's, I won't name any for the sake of not being, I won't name any, but they're very legalistic, or they say this, you now need to behave this way and this is what you have to do. And there's this whole, it turns people off because I could never do that. I'm still struggling with my my sinful nature. I'm still struggling that way.
Yes.
But we've never been pushed. God doesn't push anyone. He's a gentleman. He invites you in, he knocks on the door, and it's up to you to open it. And you don't need to open it. But when I didn't go down that path, I noticed that, especially being in the entertainment industry, it's like the devil's playground. So you think it's like, this is how you're lured in with all these, seems to be so glamorous, and everyone's chasing fame, and which is what my book is about, when the glitter fades, basically. The stars in people's eyes and thinking it's going to be one way, and then it ends up being another way. So I'm sort of going off track a little bit there, but what I'm saying is that everything we do is a free choice. And I think I explained to you, Aldwyn, yesterday when we were talking, as far as parents, we try so hard to protect our children, and we tell them, don't do this because this will happen. And they think that we're taking away their choice, so they rebel. Okay, so while they're young, we can protect them. But once they're once they're adults, they can just say, no, we're going to do it our way. And then they make this complete mess of their life, and then sort of come home a bit like the prodigal son. But that's a little bit like if you stick your middle finger up at God and say, I don't want to live by your rules, I want to do things my way, then you're no longer under his protection. So whatever choices you make, the consequences are there for you to deal with. So is that sort of what you were thinking, Ken? Or am I off track there?
Sort of. Let me make some clarifications around that. So around choice, when it comes to the sovereign God and around choices, I want to be very careful how we preface things. So let's say, first of all, I'm going to say, in regards to salvation, being saved by him, it is very easy for us to have the illusion of that is our choice. When it comes to salvation, no, that's God chooses you, and it's his work entirely. There's nothing you can do to earn his salvation. There's nothing you can ever do. There's nothing you ever have done to earn that salvation. That is a gift that he gives you. Now, choices, where free will comes in, if you will, choices, is within what we do and what we don't do. So after salvation, we choose to sin. We choose this and we choose that. There is one thing, though, that I want to clarify that you said. So when you are God's child, so I definitely don't believe you can lose your salvation. You can't. That would literally make the work that Christ did on the cross pointless, because if you could lose it, then it's works based. So where am I going with this? So I am basically going with this on, when you do choose a path, or when you do choose, let's take a Christian for an aspect. When a Christian does choose to go in a different direction than where God is highlighting and presenting, no, you are still protected by him, because if you are his child, he's not going to let go of you. So he may let you run off and go off on this little trail and eventually be like the prodigal son, who spent his entire inheritance and then ended up with nothing and had to come running back to the father. But God is going to put situations and things in your life that lead you back to him in that aspect. So if you do choose, I'm going to go down this path of indulgence for right now, there's going to eventually become a time where he sweeps you back in, because you are his child. He won't let go of you. Then there's the other aspect of choice that I wanted to get into. There's, a lot of times I hear other Christians going, well, how do I know if I'm in God's will? Honestly, where you are right now, right here in this very moment, you're dead center in the middle of God's will. So sometimes I think we overanalyze, well, what choices do I need to make sure that I'm in the center of God's will? Whatever choice you do make, what's interesting about that is you are always in the center of his will, even if it's not necessarily a choice that he wants you, he may be allowing you to make that choice so that you can learn and you can grow from that path. Does that make sense? You catching what I'm throwing down there?
Yeah.
That's all a belief, right? Ken, there'll be people that don't believe in God, and that's a choice too, right? So this is, these are your beliefs as a Christian, and we're all Christians here. However, it's definitely not a full-on Bible bashing Christian show, right? There might be people that are thinking that right now because, sometimes we present our beliefs and sometimes it comes across like, okay, this is the way it actually is. Well, do we know that this is actually the way it is in the spiritual world? How do we know that any of our beliefs are actually truly true? How do we know what the truth is, really? We make a choice, we decide or choose a certain religion or spiritual path. And in our last show, we talked a lot about, spiritual authority, right? We talked a lot about this, about your spiritual authority on a day-to-day basis. Now, yes, faith is a very important thing, and it's one of actually the 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich is faith, right? So faith for a lot of people is a very important choice, okay? And what we're saying now for those who are tuning in, our beliefs and our choices that we've made in our life are not necessarily going to be your beliefs and your choices. You're going to have your viewpoint about everything we're saying on this show.
Yes.
Right. And so,
I did get a little deep theological on that, but I kind of wanted to explain myself a little bit on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I get, and I love your passion for Christianity and your faith, etc. And I think faith is really important because we are going through a spiritual war right now. We're going through, potentially we have World War III looming in the world right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. On a bigger perspective, there's also a lot of uncertainty with people's families and with their businesses, with their work, with the what governments are doing. There's so much going on in the world that we have absolutely no control over. And then there's our world of our day-to-day living and our moment-by-moment choices that we make. Now, I had an absolute nervous breakdown just before the show, and I'm still feeling very emotional. And, sometimes we have to go through those emotions. We have to feel the feelings. We have to feel the upset and feel the pain and feel the anger and feel all of it sometimes, to move through it. There's no point shutting it down. There's no point saying it'll all be okay, don't worry about it. Sometimes we just have to feel it because there's a lot of intense energy out there right now. A lot of intense energy. And if we don't find ways to deal with it with our choices, then we will end up potentially depressed or suicidal and thinking, what's the point of even living, right? And then the heart of everything we do with our media business is about inspiring more truth and good news and helping people share their good news. And sometimes it's going through the dark places, going through the breakdowns that we have these stories to share about our breakthroughs and how we've come through that. And sometimes it's an ongoing practice, really, to stay in a positive state, a positive frame of mind. It's challenging. It's really challenging. And, I'm certainly challenged at the moment. I've been challenged on and off over the last week. 2 days ago was my mum's 82nd birthday. And I saw my mum, and with her dementia now, she couldn't even blow out her own candles. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see that. And yet a year ago, she was so vibrant, and she was walking around the place a year ago, and then she had this fall under the care of a carer. And yes, I have a lot of anger around that, around the fact that it happened under the care of a carer. She had a fall, and now she can't walk. Now with her dementia, she cannot walk, and now she's in a nursing home. And all I want to do is take her out of the nursing home. Monday night, she said, as I was leaving the nursing home, she said, "Are we going now? Are we going now?" And I said, "Mum, I can't bring you home while you're not walking," right? And there's no effort to get her up. We've tried everything to get her out of bed, and she's got too much fear around it. She's got, she just, and it could be the dementia that she's forgotten how to walk now, but also her legs have gone like jelly. She's been lying down for over a year. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see those you love in situations like this. And this is the thing about life, is that at any moment, anything can change. I was talking to someone this morning, the Gold Coast referral group, lady called Marion, and she said that she knew this lady who was really vibrant and outgoing and was this amazingly vibrant person, and they had an accident, and she saw this lady the other day, and she said she didn't recognize her. And that's how quickly life can change. And so we have our conscious choices, but also sometimes, we are at the effect of people's choices around us. You could be walking across the street and someone runs you over, right? That, like, anything could happen at any moment. Yes, accidents happen, and life is unpredictable, and it's constantly throwing curveballs and spiritual challenges, right? And I believe in entities, and I'm sure there's some really dark entities out there, and there's some really light energies out there as well. It's a whole yin yang of life. And so what choices are we going to make on a day-to-day, moment by moment basis that are going to impact how we do life? That's the challenge. Right. So what do you do? And I invite those, tuning in right now, welcome on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're tuning in. How do you deal with life's challenges when life throws you curveballs? How do you deal with it? What choices do you make in those moments to deal with life's challenges? And most of us are in survival mode. We're in fight or flight usually, right? So most people, you're either going to fight it, you're going to freeze, or you're going to run away. Right. I tend to generally freeze and run away is usually how I deal with it. My dad said anger is danger, and I've tended to suppress my anger, which has actually led to depression over the years. However, I think expressing your anger in some ways without hurting anybody else is actually a very positive thing. And as they say, underneath sadness is anger, and underneath anger is sadness often. So I think always having compassion for those around you. I think everyone's doing the best they can with what they know. And having that love. I'm going to put my love heart here because I feel we need extra love today, especially with what's going on in the world with Iran and, Israel and America at the moment attacking, it's all going on, right? So more love and compassion for self and then for others, I think, is really, really important to help navigate the very challenging times that we're in on a global scale right now.
Aldwyn, can I just put my little 2 cents worth in about how I used to deal with when I was in a really bad state of mind that I couldn't work out why I was so upset. This is when I was much younger. I started a journal, and I just started writing down what was so bothering me, and then the tears would come, and then I just would keep writing and writing. And sometimes I'd write 5 pages and it was tear splash pages. But then I felt better because then the reason was coming out. I started to understand what is this, and you diffuse it. You diffuse it by saying, okay, well, because we're such emotional people, we get caught up in that emotion, and then we stop looking at the logic, or we decide we're going to focus on the pain rather than focus away on the pain and find another way to channel that energy. It's really channeling that energy. So choosing, like I said to you yesterday, Aldwyn, sometimes when I'm feeling, even now, you can still journal, but even to me, the Book of Psalms is very soothing for me. And Ken just read a beautiful psalm just before. So to me, diffusing that is sometimes untangling those thoughts. That's why the journaling that I was telling you about when it comes to writing, the journaling just untangles those thoughts of why you're so stressed about a situation, and it diffuses it. It really does diffuse. I always would feel so much better after journaling something, and then I would go and I'd watch a really funny show. Like when I was young, I used to love Laverne and Shirley and all these shows. I used to just watch something really funny that would just make me laugh and just forget things, because the bottom line is, we can either wallow in that pain and make it even worse, and that this is the choices we have, and then write down also in the journaling, what are my choices right now? And write down what you can do, what you can't do, and work out how you can get through it. To me personally, journaling and writing was very helpful. Some people use music or whatever, but that's just how you said.
I love having music in the background, especially when I'm journaling. Like right now in the back of my headphones, really, really low volume, is like a little jazz cafe kind of like thing playing. It's just piano in the background, which is it usually just keeps me focused and calm and everything else. So I love putting stuff like that on.
and the type of music we listen to. See, as a teenager, I was, very self-destructive. I used to watch a lot of negative news growing up, and I saw a lot of animal cruelty and a lot of reasons why I didn't want to be in the world and why I hated the world, right? Because I thought everyone was nasty and everyone was, why are so many people so nasty out there, right? Growing up, I remember playing a lot of angry music growing up as a teenager, a lot of punk music, a lot of angry music. And that would be my way to, release. I would sing along to this music, and it's like I would release my anger through this angry music. And nowadays, I can't stand angry music, right? Like things like thrash metal that drive me bloody crazy. So I think, being conscious of the types of music that we listen to, and even the types of social media that we're consuming, is the background music on some of this social media, is it, quite disturbing? If it is, then just, it's a choice to either listen to it or turn it off. And so, yes, journaling is really powerful. And one thing I used to do as a teenager, I used to write a lot of poetry to release my anger too. I used to write a lot of aggressive poetry. And I actually did a radio show at age 13 at Radio Manly Warringah, where I would read some of this poetry that I used to write as a 13-year-old. So writing is really, really fantastic, pen to paper, and journaling with some lovely music. So, Jacqx, what sort of music do you listen to when you're journaling?
I don't actually listen to music when I'm writing because I find it too distracting, and then it's actually messing with my thoughts. So okay. I need to have complete quiet. And that's the thing with writing. Yes, those words are important. And, I was thinking about this. We're talking about choices now, and we're talking about how our choices can be so easily manipulated in the world. I mean, you go into the shopping centre and there's certain music that's there. There's all these manipulation going on and all this marketing hype of how to, we think we're making choices, but we've actually been subconsciously influenced by these external noises that they're so soft, so subliminal that you don't really cotton on that you're being influenced by this. So it's a really interesting topic, choices, because in so many ways we think we have choices, or we think we've made a choice, but it's really been the external factors that, and now we're bombarded with, they say that data is gold, and why everything we do is tracked, and everything we like, you say something and all of a sudden all this marketing comes up with what to buy because you've mentioned a holiday in Hawaii, then all of a sudden all these ads come up with, Hawaiian ads and things like that. This is, we are so, I think we live in this false sense that we're making choices and that we're in control of our lives, but we're actually being led by the nose to where people want us to go and not even realize that we're being led this way. So I think I was talking to you earlier before, you mentioned Iran, where they're in this regime where they are so oppressed that they, Iranians, the native Iranians are Persians. They're not Muslim, but they've, this Ayatollah, this regime has then, taken over, and then they're forced to live a life that isn't their life. So that's this forced choice where we think we're free to choose, but what's really happening to us is where it's a passive aggressive way of being manipulated into thinking we're making choices, but our choices are really being manipulated into this is really what you want, and these messages that we're constantly bombarded with that we're not really aware of because they're so sneakily put into our subconscious. That's why when, going back to your question, what music do I like to listen to when I'm journaling? Well, I don't like to listen to anything because I don't want any influence in my head. I don't want to have these words come at me or this distraction. I want to have that pure silence of, and I do pray about when I write because I don't think I'm that great a writer unless I think I don't use AI, I use SI. Spiritual intelligence. I try and ask, this channeling for, my words, help me with my words of what, I should write. So I need that complete silence so I can, not be influenced and just try and let that flow from just that pure silence. and coming from the heart. And you were saying, when you see, you've got a heart, like I can really relate to you because you get very emotional about all the horrible things that is done in the world. I'm witnessing what's going on in the world now, and my heart is bleeding for all these people, especially innocent people that are caught in the crossfire of these wars. And we were talking about, it would be so good to have peace in the world. Well, there never will be peace in this world because the portal was opened up to evil way back with Adam and Eve. So there's never going to be peace. This as much as we try, look at the hundreds of thousands of years, you look back on history and you will see that there's always this domination. There's always some, the power wants to dominate the weaker one. The bully dominates the weaker person. There's always that. And people turn a blind eye. You know why people who have been bullied, these victims, and some of them that commit suicide, because they feel so alone, because nobody comes to help them. And this is a little bit in the situation with Iran. For decades, nobody's come to help them. This isn't the first time they've protested to try and overturn this regime. It's been going on for a long time, and they've just been mowed down, so horrendously. And my heart bleeds for them. And I think from when I write, you say, what do I write? Well, it all comes out when I write, all the things that are dear to my heart. Even when I wrote my novel, I had no intention whatsoever of writing in that the child abuse and sex slavery and all that sort of thing that happened to these characters, because I wanted it to be a happy novel that was positive. But how can I suppress what's going on in life? How can I pretend that that people aren't suffering and not be a voice to the voiceless and try and represent that pain in one way so people are aware? Do people step up and do things? That's their choice. So you have a choice. Even when you see a bully upsetting someone, there's always a choice. Am I going to jump in and help, or am I going to walk away? And you'll see that human nature, some people just say, I don't want to get involved. It's none of my business. I don't want to get involved. Or others that make the choice that I'm going to help. Everything is a choice. And then there's been people that have gone to help a bully and have been hit and hurt themselves. It's the thing is what's in your heart. We should always be trying to help people or stepping in. Our choices do reflect our heart. I think our choices reflect our heart. And when we're rebellious, we make really bad choices. As teenagers, I was a rebellious teenager too and made some really stupid choices. But it's a reflection of your heart. You're angry at the time, so I'll show you to your parents when you end up paying the price. But anyway, I'm rambling on a little bit, but I'll let you take over.
Choices are so vitally important. And yeah, I fully agree with you. We are influenced. I mean, I know that more so now today than I ever have before. Before 2020, like it's interesting, on one side of the boat, every once in a while, I ask myself the question, what would it look like for me just to go back with the way things were? So in other words, if you ever seen the movie The Matrix, you got the red pill and the blue pill. The blue pill, you take it, you go back into the Matrix, and you never know that anything ever happened, right? Every once in a while, I have the moment, and I'm just like, oh, can I go back to the way things were before I knew everything I know now, and before I have the awakening that I have right now? But no, and then I come to my senses, and I'm like, no. Because I was completely sheep and blinded and everything else, and now I'm not anymore. But, in the industry that I'm in, the health, wellness, and food industry, weight loss coach, right? One of the biggest things that I expose in that industry is the marketing deception of the food companies. People are being marketed that certain foods are healthy. And here's the thing, these companies are relying on the fact of busyness, the busyness of life, right? They're relying on the fact you're going to go in the store, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to want to get out of there as soon as possible. I do. I want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Lord have mercy if you're the person with a shopping cart in front of me and you are moving like a snail. Get out of my way. And I said that because it usually makes people laugh, but seriously. And so these companies, they're relying on the fact. They're relying on the fact you're not going to turn it over. You're not going to read everything that's on that box or package. You're not. So they either market to you on the very front all the things that you want to see, all the things that you want to hear. And you're like this one mom that I saw at Aldi's. We have a store here called Aldi's. I don't know what it's called for you guys or whatever, but I'll never forget this. I was in line at the grocery store at Aldi's, and it was a fairly long line, partially going into another food aisle. And there's this mom with 2 kids in front of me. And both the kids were driving her nuts. Seriously, like I could tell she was ready to get out of there. She was ready to pull her hair out. She was flustered. Her daughter was sitting in the cart, opening things that she wasn't supposed to be opening, getting into things, and it was driving her mom crazy. And then the little boy, the son, was outside of the cart, running around, driving her crazy. She finally got them all, together, and then I watched her do this. She happened to turn around, and she saw at the end of the aisle that we were on there a box of what was it called? Nutrition fruit bars or something like that. I watched her walk over. I watched her pick up the box. I watched her spend 2-3 seconds looking at the front and then reach back and get another flavor and throw them both in her cart. Me, I'm standing there. And this is at the point where I was starting to develop, a lot of the frameworks and things that I teach my clients. And I stood there for a second. I went, I wonder. Right? So I went back to where those boxes were. I looked at the front for a second, all the marketing that was on the front. I mean, and it's ridiculous. It sells it as healthy, no artificial flavors, no dyes or none of this. And then I turned it over. I swear almost 80% of the ingredients in there, I didn't understand. And they're relying on that mom that's in the store and she just wants to get out and she's just looking for quick fixes for her kids. And this is the influence that we are being bombarded with day after day after day. You talked about subliminal messages. That's another thing that we're being bombarded day after day after day. And we are being influenced. But see, here's the other thing, and here's the empowering thing with what you teach, Jacqx, and also with what I teach. Once you know it's happening, and once you see the tactics, which is what I expose in my mini educational boot camp that I have, I expose it like there's a shock factor to it. Aldwyn, you've been through that boot camp. You broke down in the middle of that boot camp because it was so shocking on how far you said yourself, I didn't realize it went this far. But now once you see it, you've been changed. You're empowered. You're looking at, you're actually looking at things and stuff like that. So my point is as we walk through these things on how we're being sniff over here, oh look over here, how that's happening, when we become aware of it, we become empowered, and then we do start making our own choices around that. Anyhow, back to you guys.
Exactly, because you can't make good choices if you don't do your research first.
Mm-hmm.
So impulsive choices are usually not good choices. When you've done your research, then you can make an educated decision before you make a choice. And I always think, yes, always before, even when you said about your beliefs and everything, research things. Don't just take it from, I'm going to join this bandwagon or I'm going to join that one. Research into not just what you're, wanting to follow, but the history behind it, and do deep research before you make any choices. Because when you understand, really, really understand, like Ken was saying, even what is this ingredients? What am I putting into my body?
Mm-hmm.
When you understand it, then you've made that choice to either put in your body to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So I think every choice should be started with good research as to, why am I choosing this? Is it because I'm in a hurry? I'm in the shopping center, I'm in a hurry and I just can't be bothered, or, I think choices are so incredibly important because they have the power to completely change your life, either for the better or for the worse.
Yeah.
So it's just so important to research.
And listen, these companies out there, they're using specific colors that have a
Yeah.
specific psychological effect. And a lot of people don't think about this. And then I kind of feel like, and this is where I get frustrated, I kind of feel like when we start talking about these kind of things, I see people nodding their head like they know. And then when you really get down in the depths of things, they go, oh, well, I didn't realize that. Why did you act like in the beginning? But it's because there's so much white noise around it too, that it's like a really good example is a lot of people that I talk to when I talk about marketing deceptions of the industry, the food industry. They go and then they get into my world and they learn everything that I have to give them, and they're like, oh, I had no idea all of this. And so that's what I'm saying. Once you can reveal it and show the people, then you empower them, and that's so huge. But I just want to encourage everybody with what what I just said around easily dismiss these things as we are so used to doing, because there is a valid point that Jacqx just made there. We must start doing the research. We must start turning things over when it comes to food choices and different things like that. You must. We are living in this day and age where information is flying everywhere at us. I recently had to take my Instagram app and put it on the last page of my phone because I was just tired of, well, I was tired of the fact that I had built a habit. Like every spare moment I got, I was pulling open that app and I was just doom scrolling. And I was starting to see stuff to where I was just like, there was a lot of woo-woo stuff that I was starting to see and all this other stuff. And I just started to get overwhelmed at all. And I'm just like, this is not helpful anymore. I need to take this and take a break. So, I mean, I didn't delete the app because I do get a lot of good content from Instagram and different things like that. But I had to pull it away because it was too much coming at me, too much what ifs, too much all of that stuff. And I think there's a time and a place for that too. Anyhow, back to you guys. I don't know if I made sense with any of that.
Yeah, I want to come back to comment on music while you're journaling. I was talking more about, like, sometimes I just search, focus music or relaxation, study focus music, that kind of thing. And so there's no actual words in the music. It's just some really relaxing music. And there's certain frequencies you can listen to certain frequencies that can help as well. So there's certain frequency music out there that can help maybe with those creative juices. But often when I journal, it's silent as well. But sometimes I'll play some relaxing music just to help me focus. So I just wanted to mention that from what you said about music while journaling, because
I'm actually the same way, Aldwyn. Like when I'm journaling or writing in my book or, whatever it is, or having some deep thought around content, my music choices are often, so they can't be words in them because the words are distracting. And I will often pull up relaxing music or study music. One of my favorites, which is playing in the background in my ear right now, is cafe jazz music. So it's just a really gentle, jazzy piano in the background. And that's it. And that is just so calming, and it allows me to focus. And especially when I'm writing, it gives me like the vision, like I'm in this old school coffee house, like with a typewriter or with a pen, just like writing down and writing a book. Remember back in the days when they used to have actual old school coffee houses with warm lighting and just this real gentle jazz music playing in the background, and you can go and write and do different things. So that's my world. I love doing that.
Yeah, so whatever works for you, I guess. And, we were talking about Iran there as well. Now, I just did a bit of research in the background about democide. And democide is a very, very interesting thing where it's basically death by government. And death by government, did you know there's been 262 million estimated deaths by government of its own people? And the term democide actually was termed by political scientist Rudolf Rummel, and it's any murder by a government of its own people, including, genocide, mass killings, political purges, forced labor deaths, and deliberate famine policies. So 262 million people killed by governments from 1900 to 1999. Some of the biggest ones in China, 40 to 75 million deaths, including famine linked to policy. In Germany, Adolf Hitler's 20 million people, apparently, including the Holocaust. Pol Pot's Cambodia, 2 million deaths there. And then it's also happened in North Korea, in Turkey, with the Christian genocide. Apparently 2.5 million Christians were killed in Turkey in the early 1900s. Japan, Africa, there's so many countries that have killed their own people for speaking up against the government. So you kind of wonder, now with the hate laws, and now, there was a 31-year-old called Brandon Koshel who's been jailed now for 12 months because in an Australia Day protest, he spoke against the Jewish community, and now he's been jailed for a year. Because of that, because of these new hate laws that have come into Australia. So this is very, very interesting what's going on in the world, and what's happening to free speech, right? What's happening to free speech. This Total Truth show is about people speaking their truth, and someone no doubt is going to get offended by something at some stage, and it's an interesting time we're in. And you look at these statistics and it can be very, very demoralizing. And as you say, Jacqx, there's always going to be the dark forces out there, I guess, from the beginning of time. There's always going to be, there's the evil elite, of course, that are running the world at the moment as we see it. And there's also an uprising of the light workers, of the truth speakers, of the people who are standing for freedom, for true freedom, which also includes freedom of speech. What is freedom without freedom of speech? And it seems like the powers that they want to shut that down as much as possible. They want to shut down the freedom of speech. And we've seen this all through COVID, right? We saw the censorship on Facebook. We saw the censorship on YouTube, right? And the whole thing with the mandates around the whole COVID thing, right? People saying, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice during the mandated times. No, I had to get the jab because otherwise I wouldn't be able to work. I wouldn't be able to see my family in the nursing home. I wouldn't be able to travel. I wouldn't be able to go into the local bars or restaurants. And yes, that was the case for a period. However, this was coercion. And yes, it was a choice for people to go there, but they felt that they had no choice. They felt they had no choice. Yet they did actually have a choice because no one actually went up to them and injected them, did they? They actually went in and it was brainwashing, it was mass brainwashing through the...
Very much so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this
all through fear.
All through fear.
So yes, they had a choice, but fear manipulated that choice, didn't it?
Oh yes.
So
that is their most powerful and biggest weapon that they use. It's always based around fear, anxiousness, anxiety. Yes.
So it's like, okay, you
people up though. This is the thing. I think that whole time woke a lot of people up.
That's the thing why
it's going to happen again.
Yeah, that's the thing on why they're panicking so much nowadays, and they're trying to shut everybody up, because what they wanted to happen in 2020 didn't exactly happen. The opposite happened. They woke up the sheep, and we are now awake now, and they are just going crazy now because they can't shut us up now. We are awake. We are also in the information age. We are also in the high internet age. Everybody has access to everything. It's not as easy for them anymore to hide things anymore like it was before the internet days.
It went back a little bit about choices. Do your research before you make the choice. Had people done their research before making that choice, they acted on emotion, they acted on fear. They didn't research. What happened with me is that I started thinking, this is a bit strange. Why are they shutting down doctors that are trying to speak the truth or trying to help people? Why are they shutting them down? Like, that's what made me think there's something not right here. And, all these things made me think, I've got to look into this more. I've got to look into why is this happening? Why is this mass panic? And so I researched, and with research, that's when you start to, and the fact that they're shutting down all these things, then that makes you even more suspicious. You think, well, there's something not right. So before you make choices, research. Don't just blindly act on your emotions. Do your research.
And here's the other thing too. This doesn't make sense in America. Okay, so I actually have a little SERP about this in my boot camp, but here in America, so they closed down small businesses, they closed down our beaches, they closed down gyms, yet liquor stores were allowed to stay open. Bars were allowed to stay open. Big food was allowed to stay open. Does any of that make sense if it was really about our health and, oh my gosh, this dangerous virus?
It didn't even make sense to me of why in the history you've only ever needed one vaccine. But why would you need another one a few weeks later and then another one 3 and 3? Like, why? Why do you need 3? Like, that also made me think there's something not right.
Yeah.
And why were the politicians exempt from getting it? Why?
Thank you. Yes.
And why didn't people cotton on? Hang on, why are you exempt? You're out in the public all the time. See, people they didn't do their research. They acted on fear. They acted on emotion, and they didn't question. They didn't fight back. We're the masses. I mean, we can overpower. We're the majority, and yet through fear, people just caved.
Another question that I'll ask, just to kind of further bring the point through that we're trying to make here. The whole 6 feet apart thing. Where did that come from? Where did it come from? And who stated that 6 feet apart was safe?
Yes.
If this virus was so dangerous as they claimed it to be, I would think we need to be 20 feet apart, but 6 feet apart. So the question is where did the whole 6 feet apart thing come from? As I did my deep research on that, I made a very interesting discovery, which actually shocked me. But then after the shock was over, I was like, this makes sense now. Okay. The whole 6 thing apart, think about the number 6. Okay. So you know where I'm going with this. And then the ritual hand washing, and then the mask over the face. That's all part of a satanic ritual. And they do all of those practices. So the 6 feet apart was actually part of that. They were trying to get us to do a mini participation in a ritual.
Yes, and in the Epstein files, no doubt they love the 6-year-old girls as well. So I'm sure there's a lot more to this 6, and and the chrome figure is 666, right? Chrome is 666 if you look at it closely. So yes, there's a lot of subliminal messaging all around us, and there's a lot of this that we cannot control, right? It's right there in front of our face. We can't control, but we can control what we choose to do about it at any moment. And yes, you did have a choice. You did have a choice when it came to the jab and mandates and all of that, wearing masks. You did have a choice. You just think you didn't have a choice because, unfortunately, a lot of people were hoodwinked. Unfortunately, they were completely hoodwinked by government control and manipulation. And we now know that, we've seen all the side effects. We've seen the people die. We know about the depopulation agenda. And no, it's not conspiracy theory. This is all, look it up again. It's all there. It's all out there.
And from his own mouth. That's what I like to listen to. When I research, I want to make sure that my resources, my sources are reliable. So when I hear this from the horse's mouth, where he just has said it, and just look at what's happening, listen to what they are saying. They're not hiding things anymore. Even the World
Health Organization.
No, I was thinking global. The global plan to have you'll own nothing and be happy. They're not hiding it. They're not hiding anything. They're not hiding it. It's out there. But people think, I don't want to deal with this. They can't. You open up the blinders, all this digital ID, all the rest of it, of control. Can't you see it's already been happening in China? why do people see it's all marketed again? We think we have choices, but it's not. Everything's marketed under convenience. So much more convenient if you have this, and especially the young ones, they're very, very much into convenience, do everything on your phone and, anything that's easier. I mean, this you'll own nothing and be happy has been going on for a while now, where they've all of a sudden everything is streaming. If you want Spotify, if you want all your movies, all of that, you don't go around buying DVDs or CDs anymore. It's all streaming. So who owns it? You don't own it. You'll own nothing and be happy. You don't own anything anymore. They're taking it away from you without you even realizing, because it's so much more convenient. I don't have to go around these bulky DVDs or CDs. You can just have it all live stream. But what do? You have to pay for that. You have to pay a monthly fee for that. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden you add up, it's not much, just $10, but add up all these $10 here, and there. So then you're in this debt, this constant debt to do the things that you enjoy doing. It's going to cost you, and you still don't own it. So if they want to shut all that down, you've lost all your music, you've lost all your movies, you've lost everything because you don't own anything, but you'll be happy, right? Next, they'll be taking away all their 10-minute cities, all these things they're creating for convenience. Look, we can't afford houses anymore, so they're so expensive. How's the new generation going to afford houses? Well, we build these 10-minute cities, and they're very affordable. They're only like, $450,000 or something like that. That's affordable. So now all these people, but there's there's some sort of you don't kind of own it. You kind of, they make everything affordable after making it not affordable. They offer you this, but it's under a controlled environment. So do you see how we think we're making choices, but we're not. We're just being pulled along by the nose, the carrot along the nose to this is the way we want you to go. So how are we going to make it so that you think this is a great idea? And
they create the problem and then swoop in with their solution to the problem that they created in the first place.
And they change laws so that all of a sudden they're going to put in the death tax again and all these sort of things. So just taking away wealth from the people, take it away. And it all goes, money doesn't disappear, it circulates. So it circulates into the hands of the rich and powerful. Now, you're going to tell me that there's starving children today in the world. There's starving children in Africa or starving people when one individual can be a billionaire. Why is one person a billionaire and that there's starvation everywhere? And Bill Gates wants to say that he is a philanthropist. He's not. He doesn't help anybody. He's helping all these people in Africa. Is like it's to benefit him. It's all these vaccine programs to benefit him. It's not free. It's not. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
The vaccine programs aren't even really vaccine programs. All of it is an experiment. They're using living human flesh to experiment with stuff like that. And that's not okay either.
Well, Aldwyn just pointed out how many governments have killed their own. So why tries when people think, our government would never do that? Well, it's right under your very nose. Everything's under your nose. If you want to research it and you really want to look into the truth, Total Truth Show, you want to really look into it, it's under your nose if you want to find it. Or we can live in our own little bubble and pretend nothing's happening and stick our head in the sand and just get by. But you know what? If we don't say anything, we're getting older, but what about our children and grandchildren? Are we going to turn a blind eye? We're the wise ones now. They're living their carefree life. I didn't care what was going on in the world when I was 16 or even in my 20s. I wasn't interested in politics or anything of what was going on in the world. You just go out there and you enjoy your life, and you don't care about it. But this is what we have to pass on. Our knowledge needs to be passed on, and it needs to be spoken, and it needs to. It's the Bible says the wisdom of the elderly, the silver grade person, is valuable because we pass on our knowledge to the younger generation, and it's just so important that we do this, even for the sake of, fight for the sake of the next generation. They've been scared stiff into this climate change and into all these lies. And I feel like saying to them, just research it. Research it. Don't just take it, this is what's happening. Find out, is this really true? Look back in historical records of weather patterns. Look back on all these things. And this is the thing, knowledge is power. Sorry?
Yes.
I said, oh, the patents. That's like so huge. Like I am seeing so much more that's been patented that even I didn't even realize. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's patent, that's patent, that's patent, that. And when you start uncovering like these patents, you make some wow, mind-blowing discoveries.
So there's patents and there's patterns, right? Patents and patterns, like Monsanto patented seeds, exactly right. And patterns, there's patterns in history that are repeated as well. And it's interesting when you do your research, don't just trust Google, because interestingly, I just looked up depopulation agenda, Bill Gates, 2021, agenda 2030. And all Google shows me is it's conspiracy theory, it's a misquote, it's misinformation, all this kind of thing, right? So you want to look on platforms like BitChute or Rumble or Telegram or Signal. Look at alternative free speech platforms.
Listening
and they're all
to him live, listening to him coming out of his, like, reading is one thing, but you need to back it up as well. Like if I see someone, and now they're all going to say to you like, oh, but it's AI, he didn't really say that, which is another scary thing, because they use AI to completely, it's so convincing, some of them, to make someone like Donald Trump or Bill Gates say something they didn't say. So now you're just kind of wondering, is this really the truth? You know, like you can pick it now if you really look carefully, but most people just don't look that carefully. And there's a lot of misinformation going around all social media, which is just, you think, oh no, don't spread that. That's not the truth, you know.
Why I've had to kind of, over the last couple of years, I've had to switch around my sources on who I watch and who I listen to and different things like that. Thankfully, I am connected with a couple really, really good friends that keep leading me in like the direction of the people that are, you know, really speaking the real stuff. And one of the recent new discoveries that I found is these people that I follow on X, and they have got great stuff on what's really going on and why this is actually good, why that's actually good, and why this. And the other thing I've also learned as well is not to get so caught up in the weeds of things. So not to get so caught up in one particular thing that's going on geopolitically, but to kind of look at it on a worldwide scale as well. That's kind of helped me out a lot to be able to see things that way. So yeah, you have to switch around. You have to find the places that are, you know, really out there. They don't have their own agenda at hand. They're not being paid. They're not, you know, all this other stuff. And these are the people that are really, you know, telling the truth. And sometimes you got to switch around a little bit. But yes, do your research. Google isn't going to tell you anything. You know, there's a reason why I don't even use Google Chrome anymore. I won't even put it on my computer, because if you look at the Chrome symbol and you look past that symbol, it's 666. That the lines around the Chrome, that is 666. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. And when I realized that, I was just like, oh, I'm not using that anymore. But, you know, oh my gosh, you've got to learn to do your research. Gone are the days where we bury our head in the sand and we just trust what we're being told, and we trust. Oh, here's a phrase that I've grown to absolute. This is now a trigger phrase for me. Oh, trust the science.
That happened.
Oh, that is a trigger phrase for me, right? You know, especially in recent days.
Yes, and there was no science showing that the jabs were safe, was there? I mean, there wasn't even proper studies done around that. Where was the science about that rolled out worldwide as a mandate that, you know, to keep everyone safe? Oh, if it's safe and effective, of course, if the government says
amazing too that 3 pharmaceutical companies, what was it, AstraZeneca, the Pfizer, and what was the other one? The 3 different choices. I can't remember now.
Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and then there was one other one, Moderna.
Moderna. Yeah. So are you telling me that 3 different types of vaccines were very quickly like that made up? Like usually it takes 20 years, but not one, not just Pfizer, but all 3 different ones. Like these, just things like that just didn't make sense to me. It just didn't. I know that there was placebo ones, and I know that it was a whole, it was just done in a way, I think, to make it so that it's, confusing, because if it was all the same, it would have been easy to point to the fact that, yes, these were corrupt or corrupted vaccines, or whatever you call them, contaminated vaccines. But it was very masterfully put together, I think. It just didn't make sense.
And here's the other thing. And I use this statistic in my boot camp. Even with the death counter and the inflated death numbers that they showed in front of our faces day after day after day on the TV, right? Even with that, it doesn't compare to what I'm about to say, this statistic. Think about this. You all know the inflated death numbers that they kept throwing at us. Oh, this many people have died, this many people have died, this many, But even at that, when you think about this, 18 million people, million with an M, 18 million people die every year from coronary heart disease. What do you think that's from? That is from the foods that they're consuming. That is from this industry designed foods, the packages, all that, the industrial seed oils. In my eyes, if you want to call a pandemic, you need to call a pandemic on that. That beats COVID hands down. 18 million people a year?
But
Are
you know what?
kidding me?
When I can't remember, the year was 21 or so, I can't remember exactly, but I did some research on the Bureau of Statistics as to the deaths, COVID deaths and influenza. All of a sudden, influenza was nothing. Everything was COVID. All of a sudden, influenza.
Oh yeah, the flu and the cold, they went away, I think, from 2020 to 2022. Like,
influenza kills a lot of people, like it always has. But now all of a sudden, there's no influenza. It was all COVID. So that didn't make sense to me either. I thought, well, did influenza all of a sudden disappear off the face of the earth and was taken over by COVID?
Exactly.
That influenza has always killed a lot, especially elderly people. It's always been a big killer. That was gone.
And what we did get was turbo cancers was a really big thing. A lot of heart attacks. A lot of people died who were perfectly healthy. They got the jab and then suddenly dead of heart attacks. So that kind of thing definitely went through the roof after all of this. And so, do your own research. It can be very upsetting to hear about these things. And we were taught to trust authority. We were taught to trust our elders. We were taught to do as we were told. As children going to school, do as we were told by our parents. We've all been indoctrinated and shut down again and again and again. And when the whole pandemic, as we like to call it here, when it all started rolling out in the mass media. Now, having worked as a journalist for many years, whenever I saw something rolled out through the media on a mass scale, I'd always question it. Right? Like 9/11, right? Although originally I thought, well, that's really strange. And then what happened after 9/11? The war on terror happened, right? So when COVID came about, I felt in my gut something is not right about this. And we are being so distracted now with social media, with AI, with all this stuff going on in the world that we have forgotten to trust our own gut instinct, to actually tune in, to actually slow down, to speed up, slow down, to actually, faith is a great way. Faith is a great way to trust your gut instinct. If something feels off, most likely it is off. Although for a lot of people, we're so in our heads with our 60,000 thoughts a day, 98% the same as we had yesterday, 80% are negative for most people. We're so caught up in all the mental stuff that we forget to feel into, does this feel right? Does this feel right with me? Is this a decision, a choice I'm going to make for myself? And is this an empowering choice or is it a disempowering choice? Am I going to feel better after making this choice? Does it make sense to me? Really trusting all the different senses.
Yes, and that's the thing. As a writer, we always talk about the five senses, but what we forget most of the time is the sixth sense is the spiritual sense, that intuition that if you ignore your gut feeling, if there's someone knocking on your door and this gut feeling says, oh, I don't want to open that door, but then you think, oh, don't be stupid, I'm just going to do it, and then there's a killer out behind it. You know what I'm saying? We ignore that intuition, and that's part of the writing. I always say there's six senses. Don't forget that intuition, that spiritual sixth sense. It's so important. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot. I forgot now. Oh, yes, that's what I was going to say. When I was researching my book, because it was from the 1920s to 1950s, I was horrified to realise that, people were being poisoned back then with just things like cocaine, like in Coca-Cola and things like that, that you just think, wow, there's been a lot of changes in the from back then, but people were working with what's it, asbestos and all this sort of thing, all these things that are so deadly. And you were saying trust, you trust your authorities, you trust your government, but they can never be trusted right from the beginning, because there was always, there was always these things going on that were terrible for people. And a lot of them died, at 40, you'd be lucky to make it to 40 or 50 back then, because and heavy smoking and all that was marketed as being cool, John Wayne smokes his cigarettes and Marlboro Country and all the rest of it. So, it's never changed. This is what I realized when I was researching the novel. It doesn't change. Governments and everything, they don't have our best interest at heart, unfortunately. There's always the power struggle where it's all about making money. It's all about making money at the cost of people's health and at the cost of lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Exactly. And so while we're here on the planet, let's spin this around now and look at your story being your X factor. Okay. In our a third of people die by the age of 65, right? 90% die with regrets. Okay. So considering a third of people die by 65, and of course, death is one of the biggest things that people are scared of. However, when we have faith and we know that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, we can rise above that. However, we still have this human experience where we, like right now, I'm dealing with aging parents who could be dead any minute, right? I'm dealing with that as a human being, but I know the spiritual experience is beyond all that. So while we're here having this human experience, let's look at our stories and the journey that we go on, because I think with everything in life, there's always ways we can look at anything that we might see as drama. Like I've had a major drama happen today. Literally this morning, I had a major drama happen, and I can look at that situation. I can be the victim of that situation, or I can say, okay, what is positive about this? What is good about this? What have I learned from this situation here? Because sometimes, we choose to focus on the dark and we just go right down the rabbit hole of dark. And we forget sometimes just step back and go, okay, well, what is the benefit of this? Okay, so for example, during the whole pandemic, a lot more people woke up. A lot more people realized their own personal power. A lot more people connected with their faith. A lot more people built their spirituality. A lot more people came together as community with people power, right? I mean, look at, what happened in Canberra. There was like 1 million people or so that rallied in Canberra and came together to stand up against, what was going on. And this is the thing. Things are changing all the time. And what are we going to choose to focus on? So with your story, I believe there's a reason that we attract the experiences that we attract in life. And there's lessons to be learned from every experience we attract in life. And I believe it's really, really important to share our experience of life heart to heart, even more so now in this AI world where we don't know what's real anymore. Actually, to come from a heart space and connect heart to heart and go, this is my human experience right now. This is what I'm feeling right now. And whether you're on a high or on a low, it's a roller coaster ride of life. We're going to go through it all, but share what's going on for you. And it's amazing how you can impact people through that and how you can impact change and create change through your story. So Jacqx, you're going to be going deep into this at our retreat, Mastering the Art of Storytelling, at our Impact Change retreat. But just for people who think, oh no, I don't have a great story, or, my story is not good enough, or, for people that have that conversation going on, or that they're not good enough to share their story, or that they're worried about what people might think, or if they're going to come across bad, etc., what would you say to those people?
I'd say that you said it actually. You just pointed it out that there's a lesson to everything. So we all learn our life lessons. With my memoir writing, the reason I love helping people with their memoir writing is because the journey, whether it's a difficult journey or whether it's a positive journey, people are interested in connecting with others through their stories. They can then just say, if you've been through a really traumatic experience, by sharing, and this is it, the memoirs are, you have to be honest. There's no social media, put on your best front and, show all the good side to yourself. You have to be raw and honest with what you're sharing. You've made your choices, and if you can share with someone how sometimes you didn't make a choice. If you were abused as a child when you were young, that was not your choice. But your journey, right, your journey, you can help someone through that journey of how you got out of there. Because with all the bad things that happen in life, it's never going to be, there's always going to be the rainbow at the end. You're not going to live like this forever. This is just a time that will end. You know, there's good times, there's bad times if you focus on the time that you end. But people love connecting to stories because they want to know they might be in the middle of their own really traumatic time, and they can read how other people got through. And there's some amazing memoirs that really help. But also memoir writing is not just about the trauma and things like that. It's also about businesses. They write memoirs to see how did they start a business from scratch and make this business. But people, like, if I'm trying to start up a business, what do? Like, you research books about business and how people succeeded in their business. Like, there's lots of reasons to write your memoir. It's not just about emotional things that you've been through. It's also about your successes, of how you navigated. Because if you look at the history of businesses, so many businesses failed before they succeeded. And the only ones that succeeded are the ones that kept persisting and kept going and didn't give up. So there's so many lessons to learn in life. And the reason I love the helping people write their memoirs is because as we're speaking and as they're writing, unraveling these reasons why these things have happened to them all their life, or even the choices of why did they even start this business, or why did they go down this road, it starts to unravel and you start to understand the person better. But not only that, you as the writer start to understand yourself better and the choices you made. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle. All of a sudden it starts to make sense. And so that's what the beauty of why I'm particularly interested in helping with the memoir stories, is because people connect to other people. People want to see that they're not alone on their journey, that they might have suffered terrible depression, but they got through the other side. And there's some really interesting memoirs there of people. There was one that Terry White, I think, and I can't at the top of my head remember exactly her memoir, but she was the editor of this very successful magazine in the UK. And the whole book was all about fighting her demons in her head, like she was in addiction and alcoholism and addiction and everything. And you kind of want to think, oh my goodness, like, this is too much. She never spoke about her career. It was all about how she fought her demons. And so in the end, you realize that, she was sexually abused as a child. And this is why, like, people judge people, like, write them off because they're alcoholics or they're addicts, not realizing that you're a product of your childhood. What happened to you as a child, you carry forward. But to see that journey of how she got through that, because at first I thought, I don't think I would read anymore. This is so hard to read. It's so, you're really in there fighting with the demons in her head. And she was so raw and honest about it. That's what I loved about it. But she got through that. So if you always remember that, which the retreat, we were saying, there's a story arc in everything. Your life starts in one way, then something happens to turn your life upside down. And then how do you go through to you're a changed person. There's a story arc and there's a character arc in every story. So the story shows what you went through, your character arcs, the character you were, the person you were to start with, and the person who you ended up being at the end. So it all ties in, and it's an inspirational story that you can share with others. And I think I'm rambling on too much.
Are a wonderful way to share your story. For a lot of people, though, it could be a bit scary, doing a whole book or a whole memoir. So, you could get a ghostwriter, you could either do it yourself, or you could do a chapter. We just did Fear to Freedom. You could do a chapter in a book like Fear to Freedom, where people share their Fear to Freedom stories in about 3,000 words. A whole memoir could be 30, 40,000 words potentially, or more. And then there's sharing stories on social media as well. And we're sharing stories
traditional media as well, right? So there's and people have multiple stories, right? They'll have multiple areas of life, but a great place to look is where you've had some kind of transformation, as you say, Jacqx. Where have you had some challenge, and how have you come to the other side of that challenge? And even for those who are sexually abused or physically abused or mentally abused, emotionally abused, and most of us have had some kind of abuse through our life. I think the statistics are pretty huge on that. Yes, we couldn't control at that stage as a child what happened to us, I guess, but now we could look at it as, okay, what was the learning from that? How did that make me a stronger person? How did that lead to what I do nowadays and what I'm passionate about helping to change nowadays, right? Like I saw animal cruelty from a young age. Now I've done 19 annual events to raise awareness, appreciation, respect for animals through the animal action events. Now, if I didn't see animal cruelty from a young age, I probably wouldn't have been on this passionate love journey for animals to help impact, those areas for animals, to help with appreciation, if I hadn't seen animal abuse from a young age. I've had depression for a long time. I've had 4 friends kill themselves, and hence why now we do the Good News Day and the Global Good News Challenge, which is fantastic for people's mental health, to share gratitude and good news. And it is an ongoing practice, because I still have breakdowns. I still have really low, dark moments, despite all the work I've done on myself. And that's where the constant practice of, whether it's journaling, whether it's getting to the beach, whether it's getting into gratitude, whatever it is for you, have an ongoing practice and of positivity in some way something's going to bring you joy. Could be meditating for you. It could be breath work. It could be listening to some fun music and dancing around the house. Whatever it is for you, find ways to bring joy into your life, because if we don't, we will end up potentially, we're going to spiral down or we're going to spiral up, and it's all a choice in life. It's all a choice. And sometimes we need to spiral down for a while just to feel it and get through it and move through it. And then, the thing is how long are you going to choose to stay in that place if you're not happy with how that feels. And I know that when I go into a dark place, I don't like the feeling. And sometimes my own mind, my own thoughts become my own worst enemy. And yes, they could be demons, they could be entities, etc. That could be, attacking. It could be an attack, potentially a spiritual attack. And that's where, cleansing your space, etc. is really important as well. So yes, there's a lot to it, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to choice and the power of choice, and to get that, if you're not happy with something in your life right now, you can choose to change it. And if you are happy with things in life, how could you help others and share that journey with others of how you stay in a positive state as well? So final thoughts on this topic. We do need to wrap up shortly, Jacqx, but final thoughts on choice and the power of choice and this topic today.
I do have one thing that I'm going to say, and I'll probably repeat this at the end. I was reminded, and I had to rack my brain on how she phrased it. And I think this is how she phrased it. So you remember, I think it was in our first 10 episodes, Aldwyn, we brought somebody, I don't remember whether it was first 10 or whether she was more like 24, but Sherry Leopold, you remember her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was
good. She had this phrase that she always used to say, and I hope I'm saying it right. If not, I've kind of botched it up. But I I think this is the way it went. Choices create change. Change your choices, and your choices change.
Yes, that's beautiful. Love that. Yes, she did say that, and that's an awesome line. Absolutely love that. Yeah, thank you, Ken. Final thoughts, Jacqx?
Well, on choices, I'll say it again. I did say it the first time. Choices should be based on your research. Really understand why you're making the choice, and don't make a choice on emotion, just based on emotion. Take your time with choices. Do your research.
Yeah.
We're not always the right choice. We're not. But the thing is, if you can, research first. Understand what are you getting yourself into before you're making a choice. Research. That's probably the most important.
And I think also the clearer we are on our purpose, on why we're here on the planet, and your experiences that make up part of your story will be some hints for you as to what is your purpose here on the planet. So really look closely at, what is your purpose? What brings you joy? At the end of the day, we all want to be happy, don't we? Because it feels good. We all like the feel good chemicals. I don't like the feel bad chemicals, that's for sure. Although some people become addicted to the drama. And so it's important to also notice if you've been addicted to drama, and if you can find ways to move it to a more positive state for yourself, so that you will have a greater experience of life. Because as they say, hurt people, and heal people, heal people. And we definitely need more love in the world right now, more love, more self-love, self-compassion, which will then lead to you having more confidence in sharing your message. It will lead to you making better choices for yourself, and it will lead to you having a greater experience of life and living life to the full, as they say, with all the ups and downs. Now, Jacqx,
I think just to write a memoir, even if it's just for your family to write this down, is because, both my parents have passed away and I really don't know much about them at all. I wish they had written at least, if not written, at least talked more, storytelling, pass on their knowledge. So that's why I think memoirs are important, even if it's just for family. Let your kids know what you think. Your kids aren't interested in your life now anyway. They just think that you were born an adult and you don't understand what it's like to, grow up and have your heart broken. They do. They think you're an adult and they don't think that, you think you're behind the times, you're old-fashioned. But I write things down so even for my kids, one day they'll understand who I am, where I came from, my life experiences. So I don't necessarily think that my memoir is for sale, like for me to make as a commercial book, but definitely for my children to pass on my knowledge and where I came from. So they have a sense of, that you read history and go back to the Bible, that was all stories that have been passed on. Like if, storytellers, stories keep getting passed on. If you don't, they get lost. So that's another really good reason why you should write a memoir, even if it's just for your family. Write down things that you pass on to your children.
Yeah, and a lot of us do actually share in social media as well. And just get that any day your social media can be shut down. You don't own any of that. So you want to be capturing, downloading everything off Facebook as well. Make sure that you keep your information and keep it somewhere safe, so that you can help inspire future generations and help inspire others around you with your experience. And there's nothing wrong
to a hard drive, because if you download it to a cloud, the cloud can also be taken away from you too. You have no control over the cloud. That could all disappear.
True. Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very powerful. Thank you, Jacqx. That's beautiful. And where can people connect with you if they want to work with you?
So my website is jacqx.com. So JACQX.com. So just my name, first name.com. And I'm running online memoir writing workshops at the moment. So if you go to my events page at jacqx.com, you'll see what I'm up to and when my next my online ones at the moment are running weekly. Like we have some people from the US and UK, so I'm trying to get those times right. So I do the morning ones tend to suit the overseas people, and the night ones, for people who are working in Australia. So I'm trying to now, I'm trying to get it all sorted so that I'm trying to please, what people are, when they can come. But check it out on the events page. And it's a fantastic introductory to how to put it together. Because if you start writing your memoir on your own, you're going to waste a lot of time if you're not understanding the structure of how to do it. There's a structure, and especially if you want to market it as a book, you need to understand how to structure it, keywords, how to lay it all out. I can help you with all of that, and that will save you a lot of time and money. Otherwise, an editor's going to restructure it and tell you, you're going to end up saving yourself a lot of time if you get that guidance from me through those online workshops. I do in-person ones as well if people are wanting me to present. So some people have organised for me to do in-person ones, so I can do that as well. But contact me through jacqx.com or info@jacqx.com is my email address. info@jacqx.com.
How many books have you worked on? Have you counted them all up?
No. And not everyone publishes their book. Like I said, a lot of them do them for family, So,
yes. Yes,
A lot of people just do it for family because they think, well, who's going to? And it's hard to sell a book, so I'm not going to tell a person, yeah, this will be like. Some stories are amazing, and some stories are really just for family because they're But this is the beauty about self-publishing. If you publish through Ingram Sparks or Amazon, you can just publish through there, and just anytime you need like 5-10 copies for family, it's perfect. You don't need to make
that's how I published my book, was through KDP, Amazon.
Yeah.
First experience with KDP, oh my gosh, it was a pain in the butt. But now that I know how to do it, it's not so much of a pain in the butt. I'm actually working on my second book now.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Fantastic. And do you have a favorite quote or motto to share with us, Jacqx?
Well, my favorite is really search for the truth through reliable sources and then speak the truth, because in truth, you'll find clarity and peace.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jacqx. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Now we'll go over to Ken. Do you have a quote you'd like to share first, or would you like to share how to work with you first?
We are going to talk about how to work with me first. Plus, because I've already thrown lots of hints out there today. So if you haven't caught on, I am a weight loss coach. Mastery Weight Loss is my brand and company. And how you can connect with me and get into my world is at www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. It is a very simple little page that I created for connection on my website. So I've lost 62.5 pounds, and I've been able to keep that off for 7+ years now without a diet and having that be sustainable. Well, right now I'm giving away my 3 secrets to help you feel energized, lose weight, and get healthy without starving or dieting. I have a mini educational boot camp series, which in 3 one-on-one sessions with me, I expose the 3 biggest lies that are keeping people sick, stuck, and overweight, because that's how that industry is making money. And I show them how they can fuel their body God's way and finally break free from that industry and keep the weight off for life, finally, sustainably, easily, without a diet. So if you want to come into my world that way, that's a great way to start. You get a lot of value out of that. You can go to that connection page, www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. And on that page, you're going to find 4 buttons. The first one is going to be a button to join my mini educational boot camp. It's an educational boot camp. It's not a workout plan. It's not an eating plan. It's a foundation. Number 2, you'll find a button on there to connect with me and to book a free strategy call with me. Maybe you don't know what your next steps are going to be. You don't even know if the boot camp's going to be right for you. Let's get on a strategy call. Let's unpack that. That is free. So you can get on my calendar that way. The other 2 buttons are ones to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe there. You can follow me there. The other one is to connect with me on Facebook. So that's how you can get into my world and work with me. My quote, I've already said it, so I kind of stole the wind out of my sails, but I just couldn't wait, so I had to throw it out there. So I'm going to repeat it again. Choices create change. Change your choices, and your choices change.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. And for those who want to connect with me, just hop along to linktree/Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn. That's where you find details about the Global Good News Challenge that we do free every month, sharing gratitude and good news. We have our retreat coming up, 10th to the 12th of April in Madraba on the Gold Coast. So reach out to me for details on that. Also, Fear to Freedom Book 2, we are inviting authors to come into our second book. So if you'd like to find out more about that, then reach out. Yes, let's look at your book there for a sec, Jacqx, just so you put it up. There it is. Well, you've got some fantastic books, so look up Jacq's website for that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Please subscribe. And there's Ken's book. Yay, thank you. You'll see that link in there too. All my social links you'll find in there, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on all the platforms. And if you want to be seen, heard, and known and make a bigger difference, then reach out. We do media consultations. We can help you with all sorts of sound bites for your marketing, messaging, and help you be seen on a bigger scale. So reach out, send me a PM on my main Facebook account is the best place to reach me. And let's have a conversation and see how we can help you make the impact that you are here to make on the planet. And my quote today is, I love this one here. I'm going to put up on the screen my quote today. And there's this one here. Life is a matter of choices, and every choice you make makes you. And that's by John C. Maxwell. Life is a matter of choices, and every choice you make makes you. It's similar to your one, Ken, actually. You know, all our choices have a ripple effect that impact our next choice and our next choice. And, you know, they're either going to make you feel good or they're going to make you feel crap. And yes, life will throw curveballs all the time. That's just how life goes. There's going to be unexpected things that happen in the world. And, you know, we either embrace it, get the learning, or we reject it. And, you know, this is where making big choices around who you have in your life is also really important, because they say 95% of our happiness or misery comes from who we choose as a life partner. And I think also, while we can't choose our family, we can choose our friends, and we can choose, you know, our mentors and the people that influence our lives, and we can choose how we do life moment by moment, day by day. And I would recommend start your day with a meditation. That's how I like to start my day, and I connect with the animals. So that's a wonderful way to get into a great state for the day. All right, sending you much love. Any final words, Jacqx, Ken, before we wrap up this amazing show today?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to everybody listening. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you make great choices.
Yay.
Amen.
Thank you, Jacqx. And yes, if you have enjoyed the show, wherever you're tuning in, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, BitChute, Rumble, wherever you're tuning in right now, please let us know. What did you get out of this show? What is an aha moment you've had from this show, or one action you're going to take from this show? And oh, look at your little darling. Whether it's connecting with an animal or meditating or doing something that brings you joy, like putting a comedy on, what are you going to do? What choice are you going to make moving forward to empower your life? And if you've really loved this show, particularly, we would love a review. We'd love for you to follow us on Spotify, like our Total Truth Show page as well, and share the love. Share the love, and you never know who you might inspire through this show here today. And sending you much love today. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 127 of the Total Truth Show, the truth about choice. We'll see you again next time. Thanks, Jacqx. Thanks, Ken. Bye for now.
Thank you.